Alan Hall is our next presenter. He's a Senior Customs and Border Management Specialist with the World Bank. He has vast customs experience from a career that spans over 40 years and has provided advisory and consultancy services in over 60 countries in all regions of the world. His assignments have included short and extended term consultancies with the World Bank, consultant to the Palestinian National Authority on its Border Management Development Project, consultant to the WCO, providing high-level advice on policy and strategy for capacity building initiatives under the Columbus Program, and leading diagnostic studies and implementation missions to recipient countries. Executive advisor to the Director General of Dubai Customs, Senior Customs Advisor in Vietnam, and Australian Customs Representative in Brussels. Apart from his extensive international experience, Alan also served for over 30 years with the Australian Customs Service. He was appointed as Australian Customs Representative in Brussels in 1988 and later was seconded as Senior Technical Officer with the WCO and has since played a prominent role in initiatives such as the WCO Picard and Columbus programs. Today Alan's speaking on World Bank support for the agreement on trade facilitation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Alan Hall.
Thanks, David. I've got the hot seat. I'm aware that normally you would be going off for a cup of coffee well before now, so I know that you're all anxious. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. What I'm going to cover is about the World Bank and its customs agenda, our World Bank Trade Facilitation Program, cooperation with development partners, the Bank Group Agreement on Trade Facilitation Implementation Support, the resources that will be required, what we've learned, and our knowledge products. So let me start immediately by pointing over there. Okay. So the bank is one of the largest providers of financial support and technical assistance for developing countries. We provide finance. The implementation takes place in country and it's demand driven. So we don't chase the opportunities, but we wait for the demand to come to us. In the financial year ending 2013, we spent $5.8 billion in the area of trade facilitation. 2/3 of that is devoted to low or lower middle income countries. We financed 120 customs projects in the last 20 years, spending $400+ million. From our perspective, we think that concrete practical assistance is critical in improving national competitiveness. And our aim is focused on the poorest countries. Developing countries stand to gain the most from improving trade facilitation. And we know that inefficiencies in processing and clearing goods put traders in developing countries at a competitive disadvantage. Outdated and inefficient border procedures and inadequate infrastructure mean high transaction costs, long delays, and an additional 10 to 15% to the cost of getting goods to market. I was interested in the comments made by David Widdowson in relation to Professor Sargent's talk. And he was saying, and David was saying, that it would set us thinking about border agencies as monopolies. And I suppose we need to ask the question in relation to this heavy cost that these transactions cost. If customs and other agencies are monopolies, as David has suggested, then how do you stimulate the reduction in the inefficiencies in the uses of those resources? And I think the subject matter of this conference, maybe the WTO ATF trade agreement, is a way that we can actually stimulate that change. Our customs program, we've got financing for projects through grants, credits and loans. We also support data and diagnostic products, such as the Logistics Performance Index and the Doing Business products. Technical assistance and advisory services. We work in 50 low or lower middle income countries providing that type of support. A lot of research and knowledge products, which I'll show you a sample of at the end. So, as I said earlier, we had 5.8 billion devoted to trade facilitation out of a total of 11.6 billion for trade-related assistance. 2/3 of that is devoted to low or lower middle income countries and financing around 120 customs projects. The program includes financing for projects, the knowledge and data products I mentioned before, global advocacy, and research and technical assistance and advisory services. Cooperation with development partners. We are committed to maintaining our existing support for development partner coordination. We will continue to work to have effective coordination, in particular with our Annex D partners. I'll mention a couple in passing, UNCTAD, WTO, WCO, OECD, and we are committed to supporting the WTO agreement through that mode, also through our work with regional development banks, bilateral donors and other stakeholders, which include private sector partners. We'll maintain also a more structured and inclusive approach for long-term implementation. So, have we been doing and what are we doing? On the ground gap assessments to validate the existing needs assessments and to assist countries meet deadlines for nominating commitments. We've already, like UNCTAD, we've already done a number of assessments through our cooperation with those other organisations. And going forward, we'll continue with those gap assessments following the agreement in order to validate what has already been found. We'll help with project design assistance, practical implementation plans, and identification of sources of financing. Establishment and strengthening of the national trade facilitation committees in each country. We're already starting to be active in countries that we're working in promoting the reactivation in some cases of these committees. Short-term technical assistance and capacity building support to implement specific ATF measures and build implementation momentum. So many of the bank's proposed ATF implementation support are not currently covered by existing funding. We are intending to create a new fund, which is already underway, the Trade Facilitation Support Program, and that'll be specifically to support the ATF implementation. It'll be administered centrally through Trade and Competitive's Global Practices Group, and it will complement our existing finance vehicles, which are many and varied, have various rules and various target beneficiaries. What we've learned so far in the work that we've done is that the agreement is in keeping with existing global standards. It reflects already, the features of the Kyoto Convention, the Safe Framework of Standards, and so forth. The implementation costs for the issues that have been negotiated, we think are probably around about 7 to 11 million for the countries that we've studied to date. Much donor support's already provided, and there's no shortage of funds available. No country is starting from scratch. All have had some form of reform and modernisation. Most have had genuine progress. But the note here is that customs is usually ahead of the other agencies, and this is a point of focus that we need to also really consider. That is, that in many of the developing countries that we work in, customs is doing well, but perhaps it's the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry of Health or the other agencies that haven't had the same level of support, and they don't have the same level of internationalisation and standards that customs has. And we've also learned that a high level of support for new measures exists at the national level by key public and private sector stakeholders. A quick advertisement about some of our products. We've got a number of products there, a book on border management and modernisation, streamlining non-tariff measures, risk-based compliance management, etc. The last one in the bottom right, developing a trade information portal, is a rather new book, and we're also looking to specialise in helping countries to undertake that. We're going to produce a trade information portal product that we'll be freely giving to countries that are interested. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alan. And my takeaway from that, and I saw a lot of people jotting it down, there is no shortage of donor funds available for trade facilitation. So I think you might have a few people coming to see you in the break and during the rest of the conference.